reflections, some of the great stories, the things that you've been through, tips or stories that could really help us in making this revolution happen again in Holland.
Well, it's the first time I've actually given like a class in maybe 14 years or something. I'm more of a recluse nowadays. I just do my bhajan and I'm just happy with this. But yeah, book distribution, it's like a big thing for it's the basis of my Krishna consciousness. When I joined in 98, 99, I joined in Germany, and you know, I joined a temple, and that same night I was out on book distribution. Like there was no staying back. Wow. And so from early on, that was the training that I got, that book distribution comes first. You know, Partha Sarathi says, you know, there's 64 angas of devotional service, and 60 through 64 are the ones that give us the fastest advancement. But he also says out of that 64, preaching Krishna consciousness is like the topmost, right? And Prabhupada said it's in the mood of the gopis to bring others to Krishna. You know, in Vilapa Kushamanjali, it's described about how the gopis take the jiva when they go back to the spiritual world, and they offer them to Radharani and say, like, please engage. We want to engage this soul in your seva. So to bring people to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna is actually like quite a high meditation. It's quite a high transcendental meditation. But it's also hard here in the material world to actually like distribute books, right? It's like, it's so mental, right? You have to stop people. You have to try and figure out what to say to people, all these things, but actually none of that actually matters, right? Prabhupada said that these books are like ticking time bombs, right? You distribute them, and Prabhupada said even if they look at the cover, they advance, right? Their lives have changed forever, right? If they hold the book, if they read one page of the book, these books are not ordinary. They're windows to the spiritual world, right? But the actual key to distributing books is sadhana, right? You have to the key to distributing books, even one book, 2 books, 3 books, is to, 1, realize that you're not the doer. And two is to have a deep sadhana, strong sadhana, where you're not just performing sadhana in a way to just parrot-like recite things. No. The key to that deep sadhana is to develop that shraddha, right? Because how can you convince somebody else that there's a blue god that plays a flute with a bunch of girlfriends, unless you're fully invested in it, unless you fully have faith in this, right? And people see right through you, right? And that strong sadhana is the most important aspect of distributing books. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Kali Kalera Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtan Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tavra Pavatan. It's one of my favorite verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it says, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe, that only one that is empowered by Krishna can spread Krishna consciousness, that can spread the holy name, right? Like, there's no other way. Like, you have to become empowered, and the best way to become empowered is to have a deep sadhana. So that is the first step, right? With that deep shraddha, you can change anybody's heart. You can change anybody's mind. You can peer into somebody's soul. You can connect to the super soul within them. And that's ultimately what book distribution is. It's about connecting the jiva to their original position as a servant of Krishna, right? And to be able to do that, one has to be strong. So that's one aspect of book distribution. The second aspect of book distribution is, why do we go out on book distribution? Well, we often say, we go out to spread the message of Srila Prabhupada, and that's true, and that is a very important reason. But also we go out for self-purification, right? We go out to purify ourselves. Brigupati Prabhu, who is a Prabhupada disciple that's been distributing books for probably 45 years, 40 years, he still goes out. He's in his 70s, and he does huge, you know. Brigupati is like such a powerful person, a powerful preacher. And his approach to book distribution is really interesting, because when he goes out and somebody doesn't take a book, he reflects internally and says, what didn't I do today? Did I not read good? Did I not read attentively? Did I not chant well? Did I not chant well? Did I sleep in late? What was my consciousness as I was approaching this person? So you see that book distribution is not simply just going out and being like, yo, what up, man? You want a book? No, it's like a very deep personal seva that you are becoming empowered by Mahaprabhu to deliver fallen souls. And as we know in Kali Yuga, there's plenty, you know, the whole qualification of Kali Yuga to get the mercy from Mahaprabhu is just to be fallen, right? In other yugas, we had to be more pure, we had to be of better qualities, but, you know, Jagai and Madai are pretty tame to the average person in the material world now, right? Like Jagai and Madai, you can meet them just walking to the grocery store. So when we approach people, we should approach people in a mood of detachment, in a mood of begging the super soul to allow the jiva to wake up. Jiva jago, jiva jago, you know, wake up sleeping soul. So I didn't prepare anything because I'm lazy and things. So I'm kind of just speaking off the top of my head, and as being away from distributing books for so many years, it was a large part of my life. It was, you know, I chatted with Jai Beta Maharaj on the youth bus tour, which was so funny. And he was so empowering to distribute books for me, like to get me to distribute books. But he also was very heavy with me at times. Like I remember one time in Boston, I did I think 125 Bhagavad Gitas on a Harinam with him. And I said, oh, Maharaj, I did 100 something Gitas. He said, oh, why didn't you do 101 Gitas, right? So so we have to stay humble. We have to stay detached to results. And ultimately, it's up to Krishna, right? You can say okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But ultimately, it's up to Krishna. And ultimately, it's up to the acharyas to empower, right? I really stress this importance of empowerment, because otherwise it's just identifying with the body. I'm a devotee and I'm doing this. I did so many books. I collected so much money. Personally, I never cared about the money. I never cared about the Lakshmi. I always figured somebody will give a 20 here, somebody will give 100 here, somebody will give 5 here, and somebody will take some for free, right? So I always approached book distribution in that way of empowering people to come closer to Krishna. So maybe it's easier if people would just ask questions. I think that's easier because I don't know what people want to hear. Plus it's more interactive, and it's really boring to just hear somebody speak all day. It's kind of like a bit like, well, I mean, it's like being in school. So, I mean, what's on everybody's mind? What does everybody want to hear?
Well, if I hear what you just said, the very first point I think is already very important, like to have a strong and deep sadhana and shraddha. Would you say just following the 4 regs and chanting your 16 round, is that enough? Or what do you mean by deepening that sadhana, strong sadhana?
Well, of course, chanting 16 rounds is perfectly fine, It's more about that deeper internalized connection, right? Preaching is not just simply telling somebody about Krishna. The preacher or the devotee who wants to, even the word preaching, I'm kind of I'm not really a big fan of it. It reminds me of evangelistic Christians and like stuff like this in America, you know, that yell like fire, brim, and hellstone if you don't become one of them. So I tend to stay away from that and try and use the word connect. So the idea of connecting to people is the Vaishnav takes all the pain that they've experienced in this lifetime, right? They've taken all this, their most deep pain that is sitting in their hearts. Whether it's like myself, for example, you know, I was beaten as a child. I was, you know, very physically abused. I went into the army and I experienced so much stuff in Iraq and all these other places I've been to. And so what do I do with all this? Well, I take that pain that I experienced. I take that hardship, those disappointments, the complete nastiness in the material world. I take all these experiences. And so I use these experiences to connect to others in a way where they won't have to experience what I've had to experience. That's what it means to become the ever well-wisher of others. It means so this is what deep sadhana means. It means to take our most inner disappointments, our most inner failures, our most inner, deep, dark, you know, horrible things. Because everybody experiences. None of us are special. Like, none of us are special souls in one sense. All of us experience pain, trauma, all these different things. But the difference is the Vaishnava understands the science behind it, and they take those feelings, those emotions, and they use it as a way to develop compassion and empathy for people. So that's what going deeper means. It's not just simply, you know, I want a house by the sea and a color TV, Jai Jagadisha Hare. It's not just like chanting 16 rounds and then throwing the bead bag across the room and being like, okay, I'm done for the day. It's about diving into the process, right? Like, if you think, you go back to like Srila Prabhupada, he didn't just jump on the Jaladuta. No, he did like serious bhajan. You look at Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he also did serious bhajan. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, serious bhajan. It's necessary, it's needed. Whether you chant 16 rounds, 4 rounds, read 1 page, 2 pages, like do deity worship, everything is meant in a way to purify the consciousness, to be able to connect. Tulsidas says in the Ramchitmanasa that when katha is heard from somebody, a deeply realized soul, or from a realized soul, it enters into the right ear, and immediately, if the Shakti is behind it, the realization, the depth of the realization, immediately, it's like a paddle on the heart that shocks the heart and wakes it up. So this is what we mean by like a deep sadhana, that we make time for Krishna, right? We make time for him in our rounds. We try to have that prayojana, that connection. We try to dive deeper into the process to be able to cleanse our hearts and also give us the realizations needed to be able to connect to people, right? Like, otherwise, how effective can your preaching be? Of course, once somebody hears the holy name, their life changes, whether this birth or next birth, in this process, there's no loss of diminution. Even the smallest progress saves one from the greatest fear, of course. But do we want to just leave it up to people that next life they come back to Krishna, or do we want to become instruments to take people back in this life? That's what it means. It means to not be a miser. It means to not keep it to ourselves. It means to appreciate the process, to fall in love with the process, right? To build such a level of attachment to the process that when somebody comes in contact with us, immediately they see this person has something that I want. And I think that is a good explanation for what it means to go deeper into our sadhana. It's not just simply chanting 16 rounds and reading, it's absorbing it. It's allowing it to penetrate the heart. It's allowing it to resonate with us. And then taking all of that, those feelings and emotions and realizations, and then being able to connect it to the jiva when we come in contact with them. Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Yeah, Ananda Vrindavan, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Partha Sarathi. Dhanavat Pranam. If there is a special soul, it must be you. Actually, you said no one is special, but you're such a special soul, and it's already nectar to just listen to you, and to receive your blessings for distributing books. I had two questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
So it's a bit about the mood of the devotee that is doing books. So one is, how do we actually prevent from becoming puffed up when we do a lot of books? That's one thing. And then the other question is, how do we prevent from being discouraged if we actually don't do so many books? Because you just said, you just gave this example of this exalted devotee who was reflecting on their own shortcomings when the person doesn't distribute so many books, right? What was my consciousness, what was my sadhana like, etc. But how do we sort of not get discouraged if we consistently not distribute so many books? So those are the two questions.
Okay, so I mean, the second, I may add, because I have like short-term memory loss, so I may have to ask you for the first one, whatever one I answer, the other one. So how can we, I'll take discouragement first, because discouragement, I think, is like, we all experience it. Like, but what's there, but we have, that's where the faith comes in, right? Like, all of these things are tied together. It's not just simply, this is why it's so important to have that deep bhajan, because we don't, if we have that strong faith, we have that strong understanding that, we're not the doer, and that ultimately it's up to Krishna what happens here, then that discouragement doesn't come. It's not that, like, I always distribute a lot of books. I struggled. I remember the first years I was living in Germany. I spoke no German, and I would go out every day and distribute books. So I would go in the army, and I would be in the army from I would get up at 1:32 and chant my rounds, and then go to the army at 6 and do physical training, and then be in the army all the way until 5, and then I would drive back to the temple, take a shower, get into a dhoti, and then go back out on books until 9 o'clock at night. That's what I did for maybe 4 years or something, 3 years. And it's not like it was very hard for me, because I spoke no German, and the only German that I known was, Entschuldigen Sie, ich habe dein Buch von India und Meditation und vegetarisch essen. Ich bin Monk und kleine Spender für die Kosten of the book. That was the only German that I knew. And I don't know how many times people spit on me, or people yelled at me, or people said I was in a cult. I always used to tell them, yes, but we have good health care, so we're good. How many times I went out and did 0 books. I think it was 6 months I went out every day and did 0 books. And on the weekends I would go out for 12, 13 hours on books. And I would do 0 books. And then one time I did 1 book, and the devotees were ecstatic. We had a huge pizza feast because I just did 1 book. And right there, it was just the process of pushing through. And not allowing that discouragement, and creating our own motivation. I'm a firm believer that we have to create our own motivation to go forward in our Krishna consciousness, right? We have to be able to rely on ourselves to push through hardships in Krishna consciousness, because they're not hardships, they're opportunities to dive deeper into the process, right? And so how do we stop becoming discouraged? One, by not identifying with the body, of course. 2, the ego. right? The ego is like that. The ego says, oh, this person should have taken a book. This person should have taken this book. I remember when I was living in Varshana, I was staying at Man Mandir, and I asked Ramesh Baba a question. I said, how do we, can we have ego and also perform devotional service? And then he told me this story about all the emotions of the world were on an island. All the emotions, that we experience were on an island, and the island started sinking, and love was in charge, right? Because that's what love does. And so love was like, everyone get into the lifeboats. And he got all the emotions in the lifeboats as the island was sinking. He was like, envy, lust, anger, and they were like, here. And he's like, ego. And everybody's like, just leave ego. And love was like, how can I leave ego? Like, I'm love. I have to love. Like, that's my job. So then love went and found ego, who was just chilling on the beach as the island was sinking. He's like, come on, get in the boat. And ego was like, no, it's pretty chill. It's just a little water. It's cool. And right then, all the rest of the emotions, they just left. They were like, forget this guy. We're out of here. We're saving ourselves. And the island sank. And love and ego died. So what we can take from this is that our ego will always kill our love. It'll always kill our motivation. It'll always kill our desire, right? So the way to keep from being discouraged is, again, it all falls back to like having a deep relationship in the process of Krishna consciousness. Because then, while at times the ego needs to get checked, the love that you've developed, the love towards the process, the love towards chanting, the love towards reading, the love towards honoring prasad, the love towards hearing, this doesn't allow us to get discouraged because we understand, right? We're just like Krishna's tools, imperfect, right? We're devoid of nice sense, we're devoid of qualities that are necessary or needed for bhajan, but still Krishna engages us, still Guru engages us, still Radha engages us, and so we just have to push through. And this is where Shraddha comes in. This is where determination comes in. If you look at all the great Vaishnavas in ISKCON, they were determined, right? They didn't just like accept that something didn't work out. They made it happen by pushing, right? By pushing through barriers, pushing through obstacles, pushing through mental blocks. And so in that way, we just have to push. We just have to keep going out, right? Because ultimately we're also benefiting. And then when we push through and we become what? Krishna Shakti Vinanahe. We become empowered, and then the mercy overflows. And we're just like, we're not even just giving it out a little. We're using a super soaker, and we're just soaking everyone with the mercy of Mahaprabhu, right? But the only thing that lets you become discouraged is you, your ego, your attachment to the body. That's the only thing. And what was the first question? I'm sorry, I have like such a...
Thank you so much.
I have like 12 concussions, It's really hard for me to like remember things at times.
That sounds intense. But you're remembering most important. All Shastra is there, all knowledge is there. So thank you so much. The first question is also actually a bit tied to the ego, probably, because it was about if we are actually doing well on books, how do we make sure that we don't become puffed up? What can we do to check ourselves?
Just go to a senior devotee. They'll put you in your place. Like it's just like Krishna's funny. Like Krishna really, really, really is funny. You don't have to worry about that. Krishna will check your ego, right? Like you don't have to worry about who's going to check your ego. Krishna will do it for you, right? So what I always tried to do when I would distribute books is in between stopping people, because I wasn't one of these people one of these devotees that would stop every single person, right? I would always just chant in my head. I would just chant in my head and just, sing kirtan to myself or chant to myself. And then when somebody popped up and I was like, oh, I got to stop this one. Right? And so I was I wouldn't say picky, but I allowed the super soul to I tried to see the super soul pop up and say like, hey, I'm ready, But what we can do is just to chant, like in between, right? We just chant in between, or there's no book, there's no guaranteed method to keep your ego in check, right? But the one thing you should have faith in is that Krishna will keep your ego in check for you. Like, you don't even have to worry about that. Like, Krishna will do it for you. Whether it's, he may send somebody really mean to you. He may send you a day where you distribute 0 books, right? You can't even give them away for free. Nobody wants them. Like, that's something I never concerned myself with, keeping the ego in check, because I always had faith that Krishna would do it for me, right? I just concentrated. The tendency is we tend to really focus on all our negative qualities. It's just part of being in human life, like we focus on all the bad things. And I tend to not focus on the bad things. I've heard nobody can tell me anything worse about myself than I tell myself in the mirror, right? Like I don't need to hear anything else, any more negative space. So I always try to I don't worry about these things. I just try to see myself as an instrument, and I just, between each person, I just pray to Krishna, like send somebody nice, right? Krishna, just use me however you want, whether it's roughly or softly, whether you embrace me or push me away, it's all good, right? Like, ultimately it's for my benefit. So that was always my approach. Like, I never really tried to focus on keeping the ego in check. It's like anything else. If you're focused so much on keeping the ego in check, what are you always going to be focused on? Your ego, right? I tend to focus on the beauty of giving people transcendental knowledge. That's just me.
Thank you so much for that. It reminds me of your Guru Maharaj. I think he would say also something like that. We should focus on that, being instruments of mercy. So thank you so much.
When my spiritual master initiated me, like long time ago, it was actually quite nice. It was just me being initiated, right? Back in the days, like, when it was just a very personal initiation. And one of the things he said to me was to not be a creeping, to not keep things to myself. That Brahmana is not a string. It's not a set of mantras. It's a real Brahmana is one who gives away spiritual knowledge. And I think that is the thing to focus on. That it's our duty to give others Krishna consciousness. It's our duty to give others transcendental knowledge. It's our duty to go through heaven or hell to try and save the fallen, not save, but try to connect the fallen conditioned souls. I mean, we're fallen also. It's just we have the knowledge. So I think it was a good question. I think I'm preaching to myself now. So yeah, it's the best thing to do. Any other questions?
Well, yeah, just a small question in between, because we have a question also of Batu Gopal Das. But now that we're on the topic of a spiritual master, you were speaking in your first bit about empowerment. What does that empowerment mean for you? Does it mean to receive mercy and then to use that mercy, or how do you see that empowerment?
I see empowerment as becoming the ever well-wisher of all living entities. We take everything the culmination of everything we've received, right? Diksha, instruction, all the mercy from Guru, and we take that, and I feel like empowerment means to become the goal of it is to become the ever well-wisher of every living entity. That's what I see empowerment as. That's what I see mercy as. right? That we don't hoard it. We freely give it, right? And we keep whatever comes to us, whatever. We're not worried about it. We know that we know that the mercy is coming. But the difference is we take it and just give it right away. We have no desire to keep it for ourselves. We're not stingy. So empowerment means, to me, it means to become truly become an ever well-wisher to every living entity. Not just somebody who looks a certain way. So, yeah.
Thank you. We have a question by Batu Gopal Das. He's saying, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavats, thank you for the realizations. I've personally seen you distribute books in South Africa. I'm still in Malawi, and people aren't much educated here, and we have only one regional language book. So what can be done? Please throw some lights.
First of all, Batu Gopal is probably Batu Gopal kept me alive in South Africa, right? My spiritual master told Batu to take care of me. And Batu used to wash my clothes for me and help me out. And we were roommates for, I don't know, a few years. Like, Batu is probably one of the most genuine people I've ever met. So, I mean, what can we do? I mean, we just have to create. I mean, if there's one book, there's one book, but we just have to go to people and talk to people, right? Like, that's all. Like, people are so desperate to get out of the pain in the material world. Like, people are so desperate to find a reason to why their life sucks. Like, it's just the facts, right? So, I mean, I know his area a little bit. One day I'd like to visit again. I'd like to visit and go there, and do something and help out. But I think the only thing that Batu can do is just be Batu, right? And just connect people in the joyful way that he performs Krishna consciousness. And I think if there's only one book, there's only one book, Like, it's not like we have printing presses like out back or something. No, we make do with what we have. But more important than just the one book is the connection that we have to people, right? Like, Batu was always great at connecting to people, to making them feel happy when they saw him. You'd always see somebody laughing when they talked to Batu, right? Like, he's just a joyful little fat Indian guy, He's like, really, I love Batu with all my heart. And I think that's what you do. If you're limited with facility, that's one thing, but you're not limited with personality. You're not limited with who you are as a devotee. And a lot of times people will come and they'll join and they'll come and engage based on the Vaishnava, not necessarily based on the scripture. Like, for example, like when I joined, it was during the genocides in the Balkans. I was in the army, I was picking up dead bodies or whatever, and I got a Krishna conscious book. And then I went looking for the devotees, and I couldn't find them in Germany, right? And I was just coming out of a skateboard shop. And I saw a devotee. I was running up, and the guy was like, oh, a Kabbalah book from India. I was like, hey, I'm American. He's like, me too. And I was like, cool. And then another guy came over. He's like, a Kabbalah book from India. All of us only knew this one mantra. So I was like, I'm American. He's like, I'm Canadian. He's like, oh, you skateboard? And I was like, yeah. And at that time, there were no English books in Nuremberg, or very few in Germany at all. And he's like, hey, tomorrow, let's go skateboarding. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then the next day, I saw this like saffron blur skating up the street. And I was like, that's it, I'm joining. And I was like, I fell so much in love with these devotees that the idea of giving up Krishna consciousness, it just wasn't in my mind, because like they conquered my heart by accepting me for who I was and allowing me to express myself. So whether our facility is big or small, we can still connect people and we can still give people Krishna consciousness and that connection where it's not just that they fall in love with the process, but they fall in love with the Vaishnavas. So that would be what I would do. And Batu, that's what we did in South Africa, right? Like, we would go into the townships and we would do our little dance that me and Batu would do, and then we would, like in Soweto or where Vishnu was from, and we would connect to the people. And in that way, we would establish these relationships where people wouldn't want to give up. They would want to come around because they felt like loved, they felt cared for, they felt connected to. So that's what I would do. I would just connect to people and just be myself.
He's saying, thanks, Prabhu. I'll just be myself.
Yes.
I miss serving you.
One day, Batu, one day we'll be together again.
So, how could we encourage others to go on book distribution? Because now we know a lot about how we encourage ourselves and our attitude, but how can we encourage others that, yes, this is the mission, this is something nice, this is nectar?
Well, it's easy. It's easy and it's not easy, right? It's easy in the sense of you have to create something, right? You have to create something that is, 1, stress-free, 2, fun, and 3, empowering, right? So like what I used to do when I was in charge of book distribution in the Benelux was I would have at Rotterdam something called like Sankirtan Saturday. It was one Saturday a month where everyone went in the temple, from the temple went out on book distribution, right? It didn't matter if you were a sannyasi, if you were the temple president, everyone was going out on books. There was like no one was staying behind except the like kind of like the old days in the 70s. You know, like the only person behind were the people serving the deities or like that had service that they couldn't leave. And to make it stress-free, we would have people donate books, like donate a box of Gitas, donate a lot of small books because the margin of cost is much smaller. And in that way, like we would tell devotees, like just go and distribute the books. If you get whatever you can for it, the books are already paid for, right? Vaisheshika Prabhu does this quite often. He gets tons of books distributed, and then there's like no stress about having to collect. That's the biggest stress for devotees I found was like the idea that they have to ask somebody for 20 euros or 10 euros or 5 euros or even 1 euro. Like I remember in Radhadesh, I took all the Gurukulis out on book distribution, and we met a cancer patient that had no money. And they were like, "Can we give him a book?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course, give the guy a book. Don't worry about it, you know." So we have to create a mood of fun, empowerment, and stress-free, right? And so what I would say to you is like, create a Sankirtan Saturday in the Netherlands. Like one Saturday for 4 hours, you know, we're going here. Everybody come here and everybody break up into groups of 2 and everyone go out and distribute books, you know? So yeah, in that way, we create it. And by creating it, we empower. And by empowering and giving positive experiences, we create excitement, right? We create this thing, this festival where more and more people want to come because they see that what's happening. And, you know, like a rolling stone gathers, you know, doesn't gather moss, you know, like we keep it going and we just create a transcendental party. It's hard to do. It requires a lot of organizing. You have to have somebody that's, you know, has charisma that can encourage and inspire and also baby and, you know, help people when they're on the mental platform but it is possible to create this, and by creating this environment, then you create enthusiasm. Right? It's right now people don't like to go out because it's the whole trip of, oh no, I gotta collect. I have to, you know, people are gonna say no. I'm scared. I'm a bit kind of shy. It's all about creating facility, you know, and in creating an experience, a positive experience. And to do that, there are many ways to do it, you know. That's my experience. And I didn't, we also did Sankirtan Saturday in South Africa at one point, where we would get all the devotees out on book distribution. And again, a positive experience, because everyone would come back like ecstatic and looking forward to the next one, and even more people would come, because then they would come back and they would hear, all the devotees would hear at the temple, like new people, like, oh, I distributed like 5 books, it was amazing. Oh, I saw Mahaprabhu, he came and personally gave me his blessings. It was like, people become ecstatic and inspired, and that's what we're trying to create. Inspiration creates enthusiasm. Where energy goes, where attention goes, energy flows, as Vaisheshika would say.
Wow, Jai, thank you. That's great. You get lots of hugs and kisses from Nimai, Navan's little boy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so we're almost at the end of our talk. We have 10 more minutes left. So if you have final questions, please put them in the comments or raise your hand. And just for now, wait, one more comment. Batu Gopal is saying, I remember those book weekends. Even Damodar, Madhavi's little brother, did 5 to 10 books.
Yeah, it's like... It's about empowering people, but empowerment means creating and giving like, the thing is, if you give somebody a horrible experience, are they going to want to come back? No. Mm-hmm. It's like, you want to give them it's like going on Harinam, right? As the front of, if you look at from outside the Harinam, right? The levels of ecstasy decrease as the Harinam goes back, right? The amount of people, right? The first group is like most ecstatic. But after that first group, level of ecstasy kind of goes down a lot. And then you get to that last guy that looks like he's being death marched somewhere, right? You want to create like an ecstatic, inspired experience. And I think that's what we created in South Africa. And we did, at one point, Batu will tell you that at one point the Pretoria Temple was the top book distribution temple in all of Africa at one point, because of this program that we created.
Jai. To close off with, would you like to share a story when you were on book distribution that was really transformational for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a lot. There's like a lot of experiences that I've been lucky to have. I've been fortunate to have. I think, like, for me, the most transformational experience about book distribution was didn't happen to me. It was watching the transformation of a devotee, right? My spiritual master put me in South Africa to help him, and he said that I needed a mission. And there was this one devotee. He ended up his name became Vishnu John. And he ended up passing away. He ended up leaving his body years later. But somehow me and Vishnu John we clicked. And like every day I would go out on book distribution and Vishnu John would come with me. And slowly, I watched him become this like empowered book distributor just by going out every day and trying to just distribute a book, right? And I remember Kadama Kanna Maharaj tells the story about Vishnu John, about how they were all in Harinam one time and they had one Bhagavad Gita left. And Maharaj said to him, like, that's it, we can't go to the temple until this one Bhagavad Gita is distributed. And he like pushed it into Vishnu John's he pushed it into Vishnu John's chest, and he said, like, go distribute this book, like, so we can go back to the temple. And immediately Vishnu John turned around. And to see him go from like this very shy, like, didn't want to really be associated with the devotees, to this like saffron brahmachari that was distributing books, was like the most amazing sight that I ever saw. And then he just like went up to the first person and distributed the book, and the person gave a massive donation, and you could see the smile on his face, And I think instead of talking about my own experiences, I think that is a better experience to talk about. The transformation that comes as we give people Krishna, right? Like we really feel like we're paying the debt back to the spiritual master, right? The transformational process is there. And I think that this story about Vishnu John, who I miss and I think of every day, I think this transformational story of this like African boy from the township coming to the temple, going out on books, becoming inspired to take initiation, inspired to put on saffron, inspired to go out and become a real book distributor, a real avenue of mercy. I think that was probably one of the most transformational things that I've ever seen, that I could really, truly appreciate. That just to watch this, it was quite amazing.
Thank you. And as a final question, what attitude should we have towards the Dutch people? Because after all, we are in Holland, and sometimes these Dutch people, they are hard not to crack. What would you say could help us here in Holland?
I mean, I'm like Batu will tell you, or some people that do know me on here could tell you, I'm like I can be a bit of an avadut, and distributing to the Dutch people are hard. It's hard to distribute to them. A lot of people like to focus on the foreigners, like the people that are visiting. I always tried to focus on the Dutch, right? Because I thought, well, we're in the Netherlands, we should focus on the Dutch. And so then I just started saying like really ridiculous things to get people to stop. When I mean ridiculous, I mean like, because Dutch are so difficult. They really are. And plus the level of entitlement with Dutch people is so, they make Americans look unentitled at times. Sorry, Dutch people, but it's true. So like how I would stop people is I would just say like, really, I would just be myself, which means I would just do like a stupid wave, or I would say like some weird stuff, and then it'd be like, what? Excuse me? And then I would be like, so I got you now. I got your attention. So let me distribute to you. So like, I remember one time, like I was really like getting frustrated stopping Dutch people in Maastricht. And, I had some bad experiences with people yelling at me. Somebody threw a drink at me. And then finally I was just like, I stopped somebody and I was like, pardon me, tickle your ass with a feather. And they were like, what? And I was like, particularly nice weather. Here's a book. And it changed the whole like dynamic of everything. The person just started laughing. And then I was like, okay, this could work. So the idea is like how to crack the Dutch people is to just be yourself. Like, don't try and be like this, like very like fancy, I'm realized and you're just a small jiva. Ultimately, it's not about being Dutch. It's not about being black, white, Muslim, Hindu, in Germany during the Christmas marathon, I would always go distribute books in the red light district. I would just go distribute them to the prostitutes. They would give like amazing donations, and they were always open to talking about Krishna and accepting a book. So ultimately, it's not about like a physical thing, ultimately it's about how pure we are, and can we express that level of faith that we have and that level of enjoyment that we experience from being Vaishnavas. That'll crack a person better than anything you can say.
Yeah, thank you. Uddhava is all within, has a lot of hearts. Yeah. Rati Manjari, you are unmuted. Would you like to add anything, or?
I was just trying to remember that strange phrase that you were saying. But then you just quoted it. What was that? Tickle your ass with a feather. It's particularly nice weather. Here's a book.
Yeah, I used it. I don't know. I used it during the Christmas marathon one year, and by Christmas mercy, I did quite a lot of books. But again, it's like, I'm not saying you use that phrase. I'm saying that it's more about like the the faith that you actually have in the process. People can see right through it, right? If you're hesitant about the process, if you're hesitant about the relationship, your relationship with Krishna, if you don't have that faith, you can say whatever you want and nobody will stop. Ultimately, it's our purity that it stops people. It's our ability to connect to people. It's not a phrase, or it's not a word, or it's like, you know, you talk to Vijay, or you talk to like Parameshwar in the United States, or you talk to like some of these big book distributors, you know, they'll say like, yeah, you know, ultimately it's about our level of purity and our ability to truly connect to the super soul. Like, it's not about a phrase. It's not about learning a language. None of these things matter. It's like transcendental. It's about how deep we are and how invested in the process we are. That's what changes hearts, and that's what gets people to stop.
I do have a question.
Then that's the last one before we end.
Yeah. So, how can we go out with you?
God, it's like, you know, I think I've been to the temple like twice in the last 12 years, and like both of them are Vyasa Pujas, and now it's like a class. It's like, well, I need to ease into things, you know, like I've been on my own for so long that let me think about it. And I think first for myself to go out with me, I first need to dive a little bit deeper into my sadhana to get the motivation to get back into it. Because right now my focus has been on like, you know, my chanting and my reading and my connection to Giriraj, and I need to mentally prepare. So let's say Kartik. In Kartik, give me until Kartik, and in Kartik I'll go out on book distribution.
Okay. Jai. Yeah. I know what
How do
you
you go?
mean. It's a kind of a meditation, and especially if you've been like on high levels of it, or in a successful team, and now you haven't been out for years. It's like, okay, it's like for me at least, how to connect back to that, you know, because people expect things. My ego is saying they think I'm good at it, but I'm not doing much of it. But then again, as you were nicely saying, if we create something together with others, even a small group, and make it fun, make it easy, like Francisca Prabhu says, then yeah, it's really great nectar. It's I would love to experience it with the devotees here on the call.
Yeah, I mean, it's about I think it's about paying back what's been given to us.
Yeah.
Right? It's about paying it back. Otherwise it's just miserly. It's just miserly to just keep it to yourself and to not give it to others, you know? Like it's nice. So I will commit to you guys that in Kartik, that'll be that I will go out in Kartik a few times and try. I with no expectations. Like, I think that's the key to getting people out on book distribution is to tell them there are no expectations. They can stay as long as they want. They can leave whenever they want. There's zero expectations. The only expectation is for self-purification. That's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Yeah,
nice.
thank you so much. This was so inspiring. Wow, really enriching. And I'm so happy that we recorded it all so we can spread it amongst many other people that couldn't be here today. But thank you so much for taking the time and for all your inspiring and encouraging and empowering words. We hope that soon we can talk with you again. Because, I think we need it. We need continuous inspiration, actually.
We need to be on the Partha drip. We need to be on the Partha drip.
Well, I mean, if anybody on here just needs anybody to talk to or any kind of like, you just reach out. I'm always available to everyone. I'm coming out of my hiding, you know, so. If anybody needs somebody to talk to or just to complain or whatever, just reach out. Giriraj will reciprocate.
Jai.
Wonderful. So let's end with our pranam mantras to all the Vaishnavas. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Haribo, Partha Sarathi Prabhu ki.
Radhe.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Recording stopped.
Haribo.
Thank you
Beautiful
so
evening.
much. That was
Radhe
wonderful. Jai Srila Prabhupada.